Genius Kids. Cultivating love for learning.
Lesson 4. Consolidation and expansion of British rule. Knowledge acquisition. Establishment of British paramountcy and civil administration. Since the formation of the English East India Company, there was a constant tussle between the company and the British Parliament. The company was eager to have a permanent establishment, but Parliament was not willing to relinquish the opportunity to exploit the company's profits by allowing it greater autonomy. The East India Company became the single largest British player in the global market. In 1773, the company assumed the monopoly of opium trade in Bengal. Till then, the administration of the British-occupied Indian territories was entirely in the hands of the company. The British Parliament realized that the company's interests in India were no longer merely commercial, and that it had assumed the character of a political and territorial power. To restrict the growing influence of the company and illegal activities of its officials, the British Parliament promulgated the Regulating Act in 1773. According to the Act, Warren Hastings became the first Governor-General of Bengal. Major changes were introduced in the company's administrative structure both in England and in India. The company had to submit to close supervision by the British government and to periodical inquiries by the British Parliament. Now, the governors of the company's commercial settlements became governors of provinces. Although the East India Company continued to trade, many of its officials became administrators in the new British regimes. Huge army was created to defend the company's territories, to coerce neighboring Indian states, and to crush any potential internal resistance. Warren Hastings abolished the dual system introduced by Robert Clive. But in the meantime, the Marathas emerged as a formidable power in the north. Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan, the legendary rulers of Mysore, also gave a tough time to the British forces. Having sided with the French during the war, the rulers of Mysore continued their struggle against the company with 4 Anglo-Mysore wars. Annexation of Mysore. Mysore had maintained its independence ever since the end of the Vijayanagar Empire. Late on, it accepted the authority of the Mughals. At the time of Nadir Shah's invasion, Mysore tried to assert its independence. During the 18th century, the king of Mysore, Chikka Krishnaraj, was a puppet in the hands of his 2 ministers. During the latter part of his rule, Hyder Ali, an iconic personality, rose to prominence from the ranks of an army captain. The Marathas, the British and the Nizam of Hyderabad were jealous of Hyder Ali's growing power. The British made an alliance with the Marathas and the Nizam of Hyderabad to crush the power of Hyder Ali. A series of wars was fought between Mysore and the company over a span of 32 years. India between 1770 to 1785. During 1770 to 1785, the territory of the East India Company included Bengal, Bihar, Odisha and Banaras. It also included the northern circus, the port of Salsette and the harbours of Madras, Bombay and other minor ports. The Mughal territory included Delhi and other surrounding areas. The autonomous territory of Awadh was bound in an offensive-defensive alliance with the East India Company since 1765. The northwestern part of India was under the Sikh clans, who controlled the region around the Satluj. Northwestern Punjab, Multan, Sindh and Kashmir were under the rule of Muslim chiefs. The Marathas dominated western India, parts of central India from Delhi to Hyderabad and the land from Gujarat to Cuttack. The Nizam of Hyderabad ruled the Deccan, Hyder Ali ruled over Mysore, Tanjore and Travancore were also under Hindu rulers. First Anglo-Mysore War, 1767 to 1769. Hyder Ali was a brave and diplomatic ruler. In 1767, when the alliance forces waged war against him, he decided to beat the British, making peace with the Marathas and alluring the Nizam with territorial gains, and together with the Nizam attacked Erkot. His son Tipu Sultan besieged Madras. The fight continued for a year and a half, and the British suffered heavy losses. The British appealed for peace. A treaty was signed in 1769 in Madras, and both the parties agreed to return the areas won by each other. Hyder Ali extracted a promise from the British to come to his aid if he was attacked by the Marathas or a third party. The Kingdom of Mysore gained large tracts of land to the north after this war. Second Anglo-Mysore War, 1779 to 1784. In 1771, during the war against the Marathas, Hyder Ali tested the loyalty of the British, but now Hyder Ali decided to take revenge against them. He got the opportunity when at the global level, the Anglo-French War started in 1778 and the British resolved to drive the French out of India. They captured Mahé, a French port, on the western coast in 1779, which, due to its proximity to Mysore, infuriated Hyder Ali. He attacked Karnataka and reached Kanjivaram, only 45 miles from Madras, unopposed. The incapacity of the British soldiers and officers resulted in the total destruction of the British force in September 1780. But Hyder Ali fell ill and died in 1782. His son Tipu Sultan continued the war. It was brought to an end by the Treaty of Mangalore. The governor of Madras offered peace and signed the Treaty of Mangalore in 1784. According to it, the two parties exchanged their territories and prisoners of war. The treaty is an important document in the history of India. It was the last occasion when an Indian power dictated terms to the British. Warren Hastings called it a humiliating pacification. The credit for his treaty goes to Tipu Sultan. The British did not reconcile themselves to this humiliating and worked hard thereafter to subvert Tipu's power. Third Anglo-Mysore War, 1789 to 1792. Lord Cornwallis was the Governor-General during the Third Anglo-Mysore War. He was instructed to refrain from wars and to follow a policy of non-intervention by the British government. But Tipu Sultan was keen on extending his territories by aggression. In 1789, Tipu Sultan attacked Travancore, an ally of the British. The British forged a triple alliance with the Nizam and the Marathas. The war lasted for 2 years, but British Major General Meadows could not suppress Tipu Sultan. In 1791, Cornwallis himself took over the command of the British troops. He captured Bangalore and approached Seringapatam. In the beginning, Tipu defended his capital well and forced Cornwallis to retreat. But in February 1792, the war culminated in a resounding defeat for Mysore. Tipu was forced to sign the humiliating Treaty of Seringapatam in March 1792. This time, the British dictate their terms. Tipu Sultan had to surrender nearly half of Mysore's territories to the victorious allies, the Nizam, British and Marathas, and pay a huge war indemnity, while his 2 sons were taken hostage. Policy of non-intervention. After the American War of Independence, the British government was severely criticized for their policies of East India Company. In order to recast their policies and to consolidate their position in the British-occupied territories, the British Parliament passed an act which outlined a system of gunning the territories. It introduced the policy of non-intervention, which forbade interference in the internal matters of the country, to distance themselves from disputes between Indian rulers, and to refrain from war. Fourth Mysore War, 1799. Lord Wellesley became Governor-General in 1798. He introduced the system of subsidiary alliances under which the native state was expected to acknowledge the British authority and function entirely on British terms. Tipu Sultan refused to do so and tried to get external help to out the British. He built up a large army and asked the French to support him. Wellesley attacked Mysore in 1799. Tipu fought bravely and was killed in action against the British at Seringapatam. The Fourth War of short duration ended with the death of Tipu on 4th May 1799. After Tipu Sultan's death, Mysore was restored to the dependent of the former ruler who had been overthrown by Hyder Ali. The new ruler accepted a subsidiary alliance. The Nizam of Hyderabad was the first Indian ruler to accept the system of subsidiary alliance. Subsidiary alliance and the growth of colonial army. Subsidiary alliance was introduced by Lord Wellesley to secure British supremacy in India. The system was practically forced on a ruler who was faced constant threat from other states. According to this alliance, the Indian rulers were not supposed to keep their independent armed forces as they were protected by the company. However, they had to pay for the armed forces. Part of a territory was taken away as penalty if the ruler failed to pay. The Indian ruler was also to keep a British resident in the court who in turn interfered with the internal administration of the state if it was against the company's interests. So, the Indian states lost their independence. The states which came under British control through this alliance were Awadh, Hyderabad, Gwalior, Indore, Udaipur, Jodhpur, and Jaipur. This subsidiary alliances system had a demoralizing effect on Indian rulers. By accepting this system, they had effectively accepted the supremacy of the British. On the other hand, this system proved advantageous for the British, who made huge territorial gains. Also, they were now able to maintain large armies at the cost of the Indian rulers. This whole process helped the development of colonial armies, which made the British even more powerful than before. Annexation of the Maratha state. After the control of Carnatic and Deccan regions, Lord Wellesley turned his attention to the Marathas. The Marathas had emerged a possible alternative to the Mughals. But this resurgence was short-lived. 4 Maratha chiefs, Gaikwad of Baroda, Bhonsle of Nagpur, Scindia of Gwalior and Holkars of Indore declared their independence. The British took advantage of the internal conflicts within the Maratha clans. After 43 years, 1775 to 1818, and 3 wars, they ultimately managed to bring the Marathas under their control. The First Anglo-Marathas War, 1775 to 1782. Peshwa Madhav Rao died in 1772 and was succeeded by his brother Narayan Rao. He was killed by his uncle Raghunath Rao, who then declared himself Peshwa. The British also supported his claim, but the Marathas backed Narayan Rao's son Madhav Rao too. A civil war broke out. The Marathas, led by Nana Fadnavis, a great Maratha minister, fought against Raghunath Rao and his British allies and defeated them in 1779. The British were forced to sign the Treaty of Vadgaon, by which they had to surrender all the territories acquired by the company since 1773. Warren Hastings, the Governor-General, attempted to restore the prestige of the company and sent a strong force which captured Surat in 1779 and Gwalior in 1780. The Treaty of Salbai, 1782, brought an end to the war. The treaty resulted in a relative peace between the Marathas and the company until outbreak of the Second Anglo-Maratha War. The Second Anglo-Maratha War, 1803 to 1805. Peshwa Madhav Rao II died in 1796 and was succeeded by Baji Rao II. Maharaja Scindia and Nana Fadnavis were the capable leaders who tried to keep intact the Maratha power in spite of their conflicts. After their death, the Maratha chiefs tried to bring the Peshwa under their influence. Amongst them, the most powerful were Daulat Rao Scindia of Gwalior and Jaswant Rao Holkar of Indore. In 1801 to 1802, Scindia joined Peshwa Baji Rao against Holkar and a war was fought between the two for supremacy over the Peshwa. Jaswant Rao Holkar defeated the combined forces in 1802. Peshwa Baji Rao II fled to Bassein and sought the help of the British. A treaty was signed in 1803 with the British, which allowed them a legitimate right to interfere in the affairs of the Marathas. The British forces occupied Pune, the capital of Peshwas. The British installed the Peshwa at Pune and drove out the Holkars. Lord Wellesley, the Governor-General of India, now decided to bring the Marathas under the subsidiary system. The Gaikwads were the first to sign the subsidiary treaty with the British. Scindia was forced to sign a treaty by which he ceded the Ganga-Jamuna Doab, Ahmednagar and Broach. Bhonsle accepted the overlordship of the British and gave up claims on Cuttack, Balasore and parts of the central provinces, now Madhya Pradesh. This war dealt a severe blow to the power and prestige of the Marathas. Holkar sought refuge in the court of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the Sikh ruler of Punjab. In the meantime, Lord Wellesley was recalled to England. His policy of wars and expansion was proving very expensive to the British government. The next Governor-General was George Barlow. He made peace with Holkar and signed a treaty in 1806 by which his territories were restored to him. Similarly, the British revised the treaties made with Bhonsle and Scindia and returned their territories. The British once again reverted to the policy of non-intervention. The Third Anglo-Maratha War, 1817 to 1818. The last Maratha War was fought during the period when Lord Hastings was the Governor-General. Peshwa Baji Rao to realize the mistake of making the Treaty of Bassein with the British. He felt suffocated, and to free himself, he decided to wage a war against the British with the help of other Maratha chiefs. Hastings came to know about this plan and forced the Peshwa to sign the Treaty of Pune, 1817, by which the Peshwa had to renounce the leadership of Maratha chiefs and had to surrender Konkan to the British. Similarly, Scindia was forced to sign a treaty at Gwalior, 1817, to help the British against the Pindaris. Bhonsle had already signed a treaty in 1816. Despite these treaties, the Marathas chiefs were determined to make a last attempt to regain their independence. Under Peshwa Baji Rao II, they declared war against the British. Then attacked and burnt the residency at Kirki, near Pune. But finally they were defeated in this third and last war against the British. The British deposed the Peshwa and annexed all his territories. The Peshwa was deported to Bithur, near Kanpur. Bhonsle and Holkar also surrendered and accepted the subsidiary alliance. The Maratha power in India was shattered forever and the British emerged as the supreme power in India. Pindaris. The term Pindari refers to loose bands, led by chieftains, that flourished in central India in the late 18th and 19th centuries. Not confined to any one race, tribe or religion, they emerged after the breakup of the Mughal armies. When the British acquired the regions of central India, they had to confront the Pindari menace. Lord Hastings launched a combing operation against the Pindaris and was successful in eliminating them. He also made one of the Pindari chiefs the Nawab of a small Rajputana principality called Tonk. Important developments before the Third Anglo-Maratha War. Some important developments had taken place before the Third Maratha War in 1817. Java and Sumatra were occupied by the British to safeguard the British territories. Singapore were also conquered, which strengthened the British position in Malaya. These conquests helped to establish Britain's naval supremacy in the region. The British also tried to extend their influence in Afghanistan, Iran, and in the northwestern region of India. They succeeded in expanding their control up to the river Satluj. This expansion restricted the movement of Sikh ruler Ranjit Singh to the east of that river. In the same year, 1809, the Treaty of Amritsar was made between the British and the Sikh ruler Ranjit Singh that guaranteed the neutrality of the Sikhs. Lord Hastings consolidated and strengthened the position of the company. He conquered Nepal and pressurized various Rajput chiefs to sign subsidiary alliances. Thus, by the time the Third Maratha War started, 1817, the British had almost established themselves as the supreme political in India. Annexation of Punjab. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, was known as the Lion of Punjab, was the founder of an independent Sikh kingdom in Punjab. He emerged as a dynamic Sikh leader. He made Lahore his capital, and by 1823, he extended his kingdom from the Satluj to Peshawar and from Kashmir up to the borders of Sindh. He was a brave soldier, an able statesman, and a tolerant ruler. He ruled for over 40 years. The First Anglo-Sikh War, 1845 to 1846. After the death of Maharaja Ranjit Singh in 1839, the Sikh state witnessed a period of political instability as there were many claimants to the throne. In 1843, Dalip Singh, the youngest son of Ranjit Singh, became the ruler under the protection of his mother, Rani Zindan. But real power remained with the army, which Ranjit Singh had organized along European lines. The British were never great friends of the Sikhs, and the first Anglo-Sikh battle started when the Sikh army crossed the Satluj. Battles were fought at Mudki, Jaroz Shah and Sabrao, in which the British got victory. For the next 2 years, the Punjab was a British protectorate. The British Army occupied Lahore. The Treaty of Lahore, 1846, was forced on the Sikhs, according to which the British occupied Jalandhar Doab. The Sikh army was reduced in size and the Sikhs had to pay for the maintenance of the British army. Dalip Singh was recognized as the ruler of Lahore. Besides paying a heavy war indemnity, they were forced to hand over Kashmir to the British, who sold it to Raja Gulab Singh Dogra of Jammu for £1 million. The Second Anglo-Sikh War, 1848 to 1849. The Lahore Treaty was humiliating for the Sikh. The Second Sikh War was triggered by a revolt of the Sikh chief, Diwan Mool Raj, the Ghana of Multan, in April 1848. Instead of suppressing the revolt, Lord Dalhousie declared war against the Sikhs in October 1848. Battles were fought at Ramnagar, Chilliamwala and Gujarat. The decisive battle was fought at Gujarat on 13 February 1849, in which the Sikhs were completely defeated. Lord Dalhousie annexed the Punjab to the British Empire. It was during this time that the famous Kohinoor was taken away and presented to Queen Victoria. Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Maharaja Ranjit Singh was the founder of a great Sikh state. As a child, Ranjit Singh had an attack of smallpox and lost one eye permanently. Though not handsome in appearance, he had a magnetic personality. Once his foreign minister, Fakir Azizuddin was asked by Lord Auckland which of the Maharaja's eyes was missing. He replied, "The Maharaja is like the sun, who has only one eye. The splendors and the luminosity of his single eye is so much that I have never dared to look at the other eye." Lord Auckland, pleased with the reply, gave his wristwatch to Azizuddin. Lord Dalhousie and his policies for expansion. Lord Dalhousie was the Governor-General of India from 1848 to 1856. He believed in direct British administration of region of province rather than by proxy, by supporting the Indian rulers. He annexed a large number of native states to the British Empire and introduced many useful reforms. He is, therefore, called the maker of modern India. Lord Dalhousie's policy of annexation was known as the doctrine of lapse. Governor-General Lord Dalhousie introduced doctrine of lapse as a means of extending their empire. According to this policy, if any ruler did not have a natural heir to the throne, he had to take permission from the British to adopt an heir. The territory of the ruler without a male heir was annexed if the adoption was refused, as the British had the right to sanction or refuse such an adoption. Jhansi, Nagpur, Satara, Udaipur, Jaipur, and Sambhalpur were annexed under this policy. Another method of annexation used by Lord Dalhousie was abolition of titles and pensions of childless rulers upon their death. Their territories were then annexed. Thus, Arcot and Tanjore were annexed to the British Empire. The adopted son of the Peshwa, Nana Sahib, was refused the pension by the British. Similarly, after the death of the Nawab of Carnatic, the British did not pay pension to his relative. The imperial title of the Mughal emperor was discontinued after Bahadur Shah II. Maladministration of states by Indian rulers was another excuse for subjugation. The Nawabs of Awadh had become totally dependent on the British government. They neglect their administration and the welfare of their subjects. Dalhousie annexed Awadh in 1856 under this policy. He also captured a portion of Sikkim in 1850 because its ruler had ill-treated the company's men. Thus, Dalhousie annexed different regions of India to expand the British Empire, but he also introduced many useful reforms. Reforms. Lord Dalhousie introduced various reforms during his rule to improve the condition of India. He proved his worth in matters of administration by the demarcation of various departments of the administrative machinery and appointment of Lieutenant Governor for Bengal. He introduced the non-regulation system, where a chief commissioner was appointed in the non-regulation province. Punjab and Awadh were non-regulation provinces. They were directly under the control of the Governor-General through commissioners. During his time, railways and telegraph were introduced in India to improve the means of communication. He began building many public utility structures and started the Public Works Department, which undertook the work of constructing roads, bridges, and irrigation works such as canals, etc. The extension of the Grand Trunk Road from Peshawar to Calcutta was started during his tenure. Old canals were repaired and the new Ganga Canal was constructed for irrigation purposes. In the educational field, Dalhousie gave the recommendations to the Woods Dispatch for improving the education system in India. Other administrative policies and reforms. Warren Hastings was appointed the Governor of Bengal in 1772. 2 years later, he was made the Governor-General of Bengal. He could not expand the possessions of the company in India. However, he stopped the pension of Emperor Shah Alam and reduced the pension of the Nawab of Bengal from 32 lakh to 16 lakh rupees per year. Lord Cornwallis became the Governor-General of Bengal in 1786. He introduced the system of permanent settlement of revenue in Bengal in 1793. According to this system, zamindars were given the permanent right to collect taxes from the peasants. It assured the company of a fixed income from land revenue every year. But it gave birth to a class of absentee landlords. Cornwallis also introduced judicial and police reforms. He set his own example of honesty and created a spirit of honesty among the company's servants. He developed a Europeanized state within the framework of Indian tradition. His reorganization of the entire system of administration marked the beginning of the civil services in India. Sir John Shore was appointed the Governor-General in 1793. He followed a policy of peace and non-intervention. Lord Wellesley was Governor-General of Bengal from 1798 to 1805. He wanted to make the British masters of India. He followed three methods to achieve his aims. 1. The system of subsidiary alliances. 2. Expansion through wars. 3. Annexing the territories of previously subordinated rulers. After Lord Wellesley, Sir George Barlow, 1805 to 1807, and Lord Minto, 1807 to 1813, were the next Governor-Generals. But they preferred the policy of non-intervention and succeeded in avoiding any major war in India. Lord Hastings was the Governor-General of Bengal from 1813 to 1823. He waged a war against Nepal and expanded the British Empire. Lord Amherst was the Governor-General of Bengal from 1823 to 1828. Burma was annexed during his time. By about 1856, the British conquest of India was complete and the British Empire was firmly established in India. While consolidating their power in India, the British were also able to establish a large colonial army, that too at the expense of the Indian rulers. Do you know? Two Governor-Generals carried the same surname, but they were not related. Warren Hastings was the first Governor-General of Bengal, India, in 1772 AD. Lord Hastings was the Governor-General of India from 1813 to 1823. British administration in India, 1773 to 1857. In the beginning, the administration of the British territories was entirely in the hands of the company, but gradually the company was brought under the control of the Crown. The process began with the Regulating Act in 1773 and culminated in 1858, when the company's power was handed over to the British government. The company was closed in 1858. Regulating Act, 1773. As a result of the Battle of Plassey and Buxar, the British became the masters of Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. But the Act reduced the power of the company. The Governor-General of Bengal was made the Governor-General of all territories in India. He was helped by a four-member council which was formed to assist him. The Act proposed to set up a Supreme Court at Calcutta, Kolkata, in order to check the corrupt practices of the company officials. All officials were asked to surrender details of their properties earned. They were asked to place all documents of civil, military and revenue affairs of the company before the British government. However, the Act failed because the powers of Governors-General and the Council was not clearly mentioned, hence it led to frequent dispute between them. The Supreme Court did not know whether it had to follow the British or Indian laws. The Governor of Bombay and Madras did not accept the control of the Governor-General. Pitt's India Act, 1784. William Pitt, the Prime Minister of Britain, introduced the Pitt's Act in 1784 in order to overcome the shortcomings of Regulatory Act. A board of control was set up in Britain to control the company's military, civil and revenue affairs in India. The board of control was to consist of 6 members appointed by the king. The Governor-General was given the power to overrule his council and have control over Bombay and Madras Presidency. The Governor-General was also made the supreme commander of the British forces in India. The company had the monopoly over Indian trade and the right to appoint and dismiss officials. Charter Acts. Besides Pitt's India Act, a number of charter acts were also passed till 1857. With every such move, the control of British government in India increased. The company's right to trade with India was also based on a royal charter issued in 1600. It was renewed every 20 years. The Charter Act of 1813 abolished the trading activities of the company, but the monopoly of the company in tea and its trade was retained. It also permitted Christian missionaries to settle in India. It allotted an amount from the company's Indian revenues for the encouragement of education, literature and science. For the first time, the company was made responsible for the well-being of the Indian people. The Charter Act of 1833 abolished the company monopoly over tea and its trade. The company now became a purely administrative body under the British Crown. The Governor of Bengal was made the Governor-General of India and empowered him and his council to make laws affecting all persons. Power was thus centralized in the hands of the most powerful official of the British government, the Governor-General. The Charter Act of 1853 further increased parliamentary control over the company's affairs. The company's authority to recruit its officials ceased and appointment to all posts was thrown open to competition. The concept of civil service was introduced. A legislative council was constituted to enact laws for Indian subjects with the consent of the Governor-General. Civil service. Lord Cornwallis started the civil service to effectively administer the company's territories in India. He introduced strict regulations for the officials, raised their salaries and linked promotions to seniority. Many bright young men got attracted to it. To these civil servants, Lord Wellesley set up the Fort William College at Calcutta, Kolkata, in 1801. The East India College in England was another institution which trained the young recruits. Till 1853, the civil servants were nominated by the directors of the company. After 1853, civil servants began to be selected through a competitive examination. It was difficult for Indians to get selected. This was because the examination was held in London and very few Indians could afford the cost of travel. The medium of expression was English, which was a foreign language to the Indians, and the maximum age for competing was very low. Army. The British needed a large army to conquer more territories, protect British territories from their rivals, protect the trading interests of the company, and suppress internal revolts against the British. The army consisted of Indian soldiers who were called sepoys. It is the anglicized version of the Hindi word sipahi. Many of them were originally farmers. They were keen to join the company's army as it was considered a prestigious occupation. Most sepoys were recruited from areas at present included in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Jharkhand. British officers commanded the sepoys. The highest position held by an Indian was that of Subedar. The British Army was a well-trained and disciplined force. The sepoys were armed with muskets. They were paid a regular salary. Do you know? Satyendranath Tagore, the elder brother of Rabindranath Tagore, was the first Indian to join the Indian Civil Service, ICS. The sepoys were generally loyal to their British masters. However, they could not shed their caste and religion's identity. The British found this out in 1857 when the sepoys revolted against the company. We will read about it later. Police system. Lord Cornwallis formed a regular police force to maintain law and order in the British territories. For effective administration, the districts were divided into thanas, each of which was put under the charge of a daroga. The village policemen became chowkidars. In 1791, the post of Superintendent of Police was created. Later, the post of a district superintendent was also created. As in the army, only Europeans were eligible for the higher posts in the police service. The police was an effective force under the British. It succeeded in reducing major crimes, one of them being thugi. Judiciary. Before the British, the Indians followed laws based on local customs and traditions. In the beginning, the British did not interfere with the existing system. They decided that British laws would apply only to the Europeans. However, the existence of two sets of laws created confusion. The Bengal Regulation of 1793 stated that justice should be based on written laws and regulations instead of age-old customs and traditions. So, some of the Indian traditions were written down in the form of laws and regulations. This made laws uniform and easier to enforce. Warren Hastings and Lord Cornwallis gave a proper shape to the judicial setup. They set up civil courts, Diwani Adalats, and criminal courts, Faujdari Adalats, at the district level. In 1833, a law commission was appointed to codify Indian laws. It compiled the Indian Penal Code, IPC, and established the principle of rule of law. It meant equality before law as of rule of law. It meant equality before law as it professed the ideal of one law for all. This, however, was rarely practiced. The Europeans and Indians continued to be tried in separate courts. Land revenue policies of the company. The British introduced different land revenue systems on regional basis and on other considerations. These included Ijradari, permanent settlement on Bengal, the Ryotwari system and the Mehalwari system. All these systems proved to be more useful to big landlords than peasants. Case study: Regional focus, Tamil Nadu. The Vijayanagar Empire dominated the extreme south for over 2 centuries, from 1350 to 1565. The 16th century witnessed the arrival of the Portuguese, followed by the Dutch trading companies. The Portuguese established a fort, São Tomé of Santhim, in 1522, pushing back the ancient Pallava port of Mylapore. By 1612, the Dutch established themselves in Pulican to the north. In 1639, Madras, on the eastern coast of India, was granted to the East India Company by a local ruler. The British built a factory there and fortified it. The factory was named Fort St. George. The company expanded its territory following various military conquests. It extended its power to Kadlur and Vijgaptam. In 1674, the French acquired Valakondpuram from the Sultan of Bijapur and laid the foundation of Puducherry. By 1720, the French lost their factories at Surat and Masulipatam to the British. During 1746, the British and the French were at war in America as well as on Indian soil. The French Governor Dupleix avoided any clash with the British, but the British Governor at Madras wanted to drive from the French of South India. The French sought the help from their headquarters at Mauritius and defeated them. Fort St. George was captured by the French. But it so happened that the French naval commander returned Madras, Fort St. George, to the British for a bribe. At this, the French governor Dupleix sought the help of Nawab of Carnatic. He promised the Nawab to give Madras to him if he captured it. Finally, with the help of the Nawab, Dupleix successfully captured Madras but failed to keep his promise. The Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle was signed in Europe. According to this, the French exchanged Madras for a place in America. Thus, Madras was returned to the British and ultimately it became Madras Presidency under the British. The people of Bengal suffered immensely under this system. Even during the famine in 1770, neither the company nor the Nawab provided any relief to the people. The dual system of government in Bengal ended in 1772. Bengal was brought under the direct control of the company. The new Governor General, Warren Hastings, 1770 to 1785, embarked on a further expansion of British influence in India. Keywords: heir, a person with the legal right to the property and money of someone after the person's death. Musket, type of gun with a long barrel. Thugi, a crime command in India where highway robbers, called thugs, killed travelers and escaped with their valuables. Annexation, to add or attach. Restitution, restoration of property or rights. Alliance, a formal agreement between two or more groups. Let's revise. Continuous review. During the period 1767 to 1857, the British increased their political grip over India. They waged wars, forced alliances and annexed territories to achieve this objective. The British defeated the rulers of Mysore and the Marathas and annexed their territories. Lord Wellesley introduced the subsidiary alliance system. Though this system ruined the administration and the armies of native states, it helped the British to form the colonial army. Lord Dalhousie, Governor General of India, started annexing states on various pretexts, including absence of natural heir, maladministration, etc. Lord Cornwallis introduced the system of permanent settlement and introduced many useful reforms such as introduction of civil service, police and judicial administration. The Regulating Act of 1773 started the process of changing the company from a commercial unit to an administrative unit. Pitt's India Act replaced the Regulating Act to bring order in the company's administration. It introduced some important administrative changes. Charter Acts, which were renewed after 20 years, were mainly responsible for abolishing the company's trade monopoly and reducing it to a purely administrative body under the British Crown.
Like, share and subscribe.